Good evening and welcome to this regular meeting of the Planning Board of the City of Birmingham for Wednesday, July 8th, 2026 somehow. Can we please call the roll? Present.
Robin Boyle.
Here.
Drew Jeffries. David Larson.
Here.
Daniel Sherry.
Here.
Noah Bobois. Brian Williams.
Here.
Duncan Curry.
Here.
Missy Zimmerman.
Here.
For the record, Stuart Jeffries is
Yeah,
here.
I'm
We couldn't hear you on that one.
Thank you.
Are you here? You're here. All right. Fantastic.
I'm glad my hearing's not going everywhere.
Let's go to a review and approval of the minutes of the regular meeting. Oh, I'm sorry. For the record, Ms. Ramin will be a voting member tonight as Ms. Whipple-Boyce is not here. Let's go to the review and approval of the minutes for the regular meeting of June 24th. Any comments or corrections?
So I'll move approval of the minutes of the regular board meeting of June 24, 2026.
Motion, Mr. Williams. Do you have a second?
Second.
Second, Mr.
Oh, I can.
You can.
That's right.
Look at you, already jumping in.
in.
I'll second.
Second, Mr. Larson. Any conversation on the motion at the board? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion unanimous. Welcome tonight. We have a study session tonight in which no real decisions will be made except the potential for setting public hearings in the future if that's what we decide to do. But it will be a matter of getting into the weeds on a couple of different items related to the kind of the meat and potatoes, if you will, of land planning and zoning. There will be an opportunity for the public to speak. If you're at home, you can use Zoom. If you are here, you can come up, use a microphone. I'll explain a bit more about that as we get to each item. After that, I should say, Mr. Dupuy, are there any changes to the agenda?
No changes today, sir.
Fantastic. So let's dive right into our first item, which is short-term rentals based on the City Commission's directive. Mr. Dupuy, I know you've got a memo here. I'd just like to say real quickly that I thought your memo was quite well done, and I appreciate the effort put into it. I think it laid out the discussion quite well.
Great. That's a good place to start then. I appreciate the feedback. I will be short today. I like to think that I have enjoyed quite a good situation here. I've been able to, thus far, really summarize a lot of different things that have frankly congealed really well together, from research to local ordinance to lived experiences that we've heard about from the public, and then discussions at both the Planning Board and the City Commission now. I think at this point, though, it's very clear that there are two main issues where there are still some diverging opinions on, which I mentioned in the report are the bulk of the report. I think those two final decisions that I think we have to make as a Planning Board before we send this off to the City Commission. The last time we met and spoke about this was at that joint meeting on June 15th. I think many of you were there. It was quite an interesting meeting, but I do think we got a little bit out of it, and a little bit on both of the issues that I'll be bringing to you tonight. I'll keep them kind of separate but kind of quick. The first issue is we've been talking for several meetings now about whether or not we could regulate short-term rentals in commercial or mixed-use zoning districts. I think it's a valid question, and I think the basis for the question is a good one, in that much of what we're doing up to this point and much of what other local communities have been doing is basing their new ordinances based on some of the conclusions that were drawn from that legal case, the Berlin v. Rubin case that we've been citing a couple of times here, that in short states that short-term rentals are commercial type uses. So I took a bit of a different tact at this point to kind of explain to you what I feel about this particular issue. In that I think we are in a really unique position based on our experiences with form-based code and form-based code over almost 30 years at this point, and how it differs from other types of zoning strategies, like in this case I mentioned Euclidean zoning. Form-based code is a particular strategy that, again, we decided to use starting in the early 2000s about how things fit into neighborhoods and different areas, as opposed to that Euclidean style, black and white, this use goes next to this use kind of zoning. I think because we have that type of zoning and because our ordinances have evolved over the decades to really regulate not only where the uses go in the building, but how they interact in a building, lends itself well to regulating short-term rentals in commercial districts as we do elsewhere. Open to conversation, of course. The second issue, of course, being the exceptions, I'll call it, that we have been considering to the short-term rental ordinances that we're developing. Really only two. The owner-occupied rentals, where a property owner who claims their property as a principal residence or a primary residence is able to rent out a room or a space or sometimes their whole house on an occasional basis, as opposed to a hosted rental where the owner is always in the home. I've landed at this point on the side that, in my opinion, and the way I wrote this, was that both of those can be good things. And I think aside from a few negatives that can be managed, in my opinion, I think they're ultimately good things. However, I do recognize that at that joint meeting on June 15th, after much discussion, at a very late hour, we did get direction from the City Commission that, in their opinion, no exceptions. So I understand where they're coming from there, although I know the conversation wasn't as nuanced perhaps that day because of the other things that happened. So in closing, I did get a head start on findings for you all that I'd like to hear a lot about tonight based on some of the decisions we make. They may change a little bit, but this is sort of new for us, this approach to findings and kind of stating and summarizing our analysis before we make a recommendation. So I'd love to hear a little bit about that. I also have some sample motion language in here, which I suggest setting a public hearing date for next month on the 12th to consider the final ordinance language. I understand it, as I understand it, there's going to be some comments here tonight. I have received some comments already from some of you, but also our council, which I have incorporated into a new draft that I sent earlier today, and I also have pulled up on the computers. I also have it here on the projector, should we want to reference them. I don't want to call them minor. I guess they're minor modifications to many of the definitions, plus a few tweaks in the use-specific standards. So ultimately, I am still comfortable if you were to wish to set a public hearing for August 12th tonight. I'm comfortable, our council's comfortable, hopefully you're comfortable, even with some minor changes tonight, minor non-substantive changes tonight. I'm ready to go. So I'd like to work towards that if that's okay. I'd like to, of course, I'll be taking notes and rewatching this to get that language dialed in for August 12th for when we review it in more detail. But for now, Chair Klein, I'd like to just pass it back to you to open the discussion.
All right, thank you, Mr. Dupuy. So, Board, I have a question for the Board. We have seemingly, in my opinion, three different things, three different buckets tonight. We've got the two philosophical discussion items that Mr. Dupuy mentioned, and then we've got the nitty-gritty of the language of a proposed motion. Those three are certainly related, but to a degree, in my opinion, we could get lost in the weeds very quickly if we start diving into one or the other. I'm curious if the Board would be amenable to us tackling the two philosophical discussions first before we start worrying about the weeds of language in definitions, et cetera. Is that fair? I'm seeing a lot of head shakes.
Yes.
Okay. Yes?
Yes.
Thank you. All right, so let's do that then. So let's start with the first issue. The first question was related to Mr. Dupuy, related to whether or not we could or should be attempting to regulate short-term rentals within zoning districts that are not specifically identified as purely residential, i.e. commercial and or mixed use, correct? Okay, Mr. Williams.
So, in my opinion is, yes, we should regulate short-term rentals in commercial zoning districts. If you really look throughout the city, downtown in particular, I can't think of an area downtown in the commercial area that doesn't also have a residential component vis-à-vis condominiums mostly, but they're residential units. And there are more being built even as we sit here tonight. So really, the entire downtown area includes some form of residential within the commercial area. So for that reason alone, I think we should regulate short-term rentals within commercial zoning districts, period.
Other thoughts? Mr. Scheer?
So I guess I have a slightly different, and I'd like to think more nuanced approach to it. I start off with the fact that one of the key elements that's driving this from a planning point of view is the impact of transients on the neighborhood in which each zoning district sits. And I find it hard to justify regulating short-term rentals in districts where hotels exist. Now, the exception to that, it seems to me, is if in one of the districts, and I think it's largely the B districts where the hotels, not all the B districts, but some have hotels permitted, but in those districts, if there are blocks of residential housing, then I look at it a little bit differently, because the potential for a block of housing, I don't mean a city block, but a group of adjacent houses, to kind of move from, 1 to 2 to 3 to all short-term rentals. Neighborhood preservation would, argue more for, in that particular type of district, to either prohibit or limit them. So, and I didn't get a chance to look at the zoning map to, kind of compare that, but that's, I would want to understand, I guess I would lean toward permitting short-term rentals in those districts that hotels are permitted, except to the extent that district has large agglomerations of, residential, of single-family housing. Multifamily housing, I think, presents a different set of questions.
Other comments? Mr. Boyle?
I'd like to ask a question. It's tangential to this. Now, I do want to come back to this. Why did we pick 30 days? And there's a very personal reason for that. I'm a serious user of Airbnb in different parts of the world. I recently attempted to get a rental in a very popular place that's going to be even more popular in a year's time. So I'm a year out, more than a year out. And they've put a 30-day limit on my rental, the rental I'd like to do. And my guess is, talking over the phone to...
You mean a cap by limit?
Yeah,
no more than 30 days.
No, opposite. The opposite. They have
Not less than.
Not less than 30 days.
I'm sorry, I misunderstood.
Yeah, they've gone for the 30 days. And apparently they're getting the business. They are getting 30 days easily. And people are paying the money. Now, it strikes me, as part of this debate, that we might extend it out of 30 to 3 months. Is there really any difference? There is a difference. I think people will balk at paying for 3 months. They might not bother for 30 days. And if we really want to stop short-term rentals in our residential zones, then I'd be happy to discuss, not necessarily tonight, but over time, extending it out from 30 days. I don't quite understand where the 30 came from and why it's this sort of touchstone that we're all talking about. Can you answer that, Nick?
I can answer it, but probably not to your satisfaction completely. The definitely non-satisfactory answer is that's the date range we were given by the City Commission. I think that where the 30 days came from in that sphere is because that's what, dare I say, most other people are doing.
Okay, so there is precedence around the country for 30 days.
Yeah, and in the state especially.
Okay, all right. But going back to the previous point, I've listened to the chair, and I'm now convinced that the Triangle District, although we see it as a mixed-use district, has a significant proportion of single-family homes, and I personally wouldn't go for approving any form of short-term rentals in the Triangle District. But I am firmly in favor of looking at short-term rentals in both the Rail District and in the downtown area.
Can I respond to the 31? If I'm a lawyer and I'm also was a cop, so I'm looking at it from a standpoint of somebody who wants to get around, they're going to enter into the 31-day lease, and the payment structures will be 10 to 14 days, and the property will sit vacant for 10 days. But it's a 31-day lease, and it'll be accepted out. I think we have a huge problem in intermediate that we haven't discussed. The intermediate definition is too broad, beginning at 31 through 365. It's just too broad, and frankly,
It was 180.
you know, people will find a way around this. If we say it's 30 days, we're going to wind up with some 31-day rentals, and they're only going to be in there for 2 weeks. But the financial ramifications, we don't have any control over. So I agree with Robin. I think it's a big issue, and I think the city commission has missed on this point, period. I don't mind if they're listening. Yeah, that's a criticism.
Other comments? I guess I'll throw my hat in the ring. I tend to fall in the camp of Mr. Williams in the sense that the arguments that I'm hearing for perhaps allowing short-term rentals in downtown or in the rail, which is really what we're talking about for the most part.
Right.
Because I agree with Mr. Boyle on the triangle 100%. The arguments that I'm hearing, to me, sound very macro level, which makes sense. Land planning, we're looking at areas, we're looking at districts, we're looking at lots, et cetera. But I can't help but look at the micro impact of our mixed-use districts in particular, and we sit here and call the downtown a commercial district, but it's mixed use. There's a lot of residential units in downtown, whether we call it mixed use or not. And when I look at it from a micro level, I see that zoning classifications of commercial versus residential are nothing more than convenient buckets. I said this at the joint meeting, convenient buckets for us to put like properties in. But if we look at those commercial districts or the mixed-use districts where commercial is allowed, we don't allow all commercial in all of those zones.
True.
We pick and choose which commercial we do allow,
Right.
in part based on the residential components of the mixed use. So in a way, I could firmly argue that from a micro level, we're already regulating residential and commercial uses within those districts right now. And so as I look at even a mixed-use building on a micro level, we don't allow commercial uses on the same floors as residential uses. We don't allow hotel uses on the same floors as residential uses. We separate the residential uses from all of the others by floor. And commercial uses, we say, you have to be on ground the first floor, in fact.
Well,
So, to me, if we were to then turn around and say that the residential uses in a mixed-use building, floors 4, 5, and 6, take the top floors of whether it's Birmingham Place, Merrillwood Apartments, et cetera, that those residential spaces are somehow not as important as a single-family lot or single-family neighborhood, I have trouble with that. And it would seem to me that having a short-term rental, whether it be the penthouse of the Greenleaf Trust Building, that's a party pad 6 weekends a year in the summer, when the rest of the building is residential, is just the kind of problem that we were here to asked to try and stop.
Yeah.
So I view it as that we already are doing this and have a right to do it. And then if we don't, I don't quite know what we're even doing. Because it just feels like we're punting. Mr. Jeffers.
Hey, a question for Nick. Nick, how would this affect people who want to sublet? So you have a one-year lease, but then, my first apartment in Birmingham, 3 months in the lease, I hated living by myself, so I sublet it for the rest of my lease. Would that be precluded if somebody wanted to sublet the last 2 months or of their lease?
30 days.
I don't think so.
As long as it's over 30 days, I wouldn't.
So, but on this interim stuff, it's not gonna,
Interim.
what Brian was talking about. This.
Well, the medium-term district definition that we've got there was one that the city commission didn't even ask for, but it's one that we felt we should at least explore, because I thought, and I think we all felt, it was going to raise to this point that there's more to be peeled back here. Now, that to me strikes me as a phase 2 problem,
Right.
but one that we need to bring up, because you're right, 30 days to 180 days is a really big bucket. And maybe there's where some of the difference between a rail and a single family can come into play a bit more, as I think out loud. But right now, the ordinance language that's before us does nothing for anything over 30 days. No change whatsoever. Mr. Williams.
Yeah, I think I want to go to a slightly other point, and that is, I think of all the comments that I heard on that Monday night, one that resonated with me was made by Mr. Bloom, and that was the development of criteria if you were going to allow short-term rentals even in hosted areas. That, in my view, we're not ready. We haven't really developed any criteria by which that would be permitted. The second part of that is enforcement. And it strikes me that I haven't heard anything from the commission as to what the commission intends to do to increase staffing at the city to enforce whatever rules, ultimately even short-term, we come up with. And I think you raised the point that it's naive to think that we're not going to have staff involved in enforcement, which we don't presently have. And I think it's got to happen that way. I do think one of the things I'd like to see us do is, if we do go forward with the short-term solution or the interim solution of no exceptions, that we make recommendations perhaps for the future that the city would study, or that we would study how we would develop criteria for developing any exceptions to the flat-out rule. And secondly, I go back to this point, I think that the 30 days is just, in my view, way too short a time period. And people are going to find a way around it. And we're going to wind up with 10 and 14-day rentals under a 31-day provision. That's going to happen. Because I know it's going to happen, because that's what people will do to get around the rule.
I will say in Traverse City, they have a 30-day, and there's a rather robust underground market for that.
Yeah,
Understood.
yeah,
It's just too many social media and
Yeah.
ways to communicate.
right. It's always a way around it.
Mr. Larson.
It's kind of on the enforcement issue as well, because, I think all these regulations occur because of bad actors,
Right.
not the ones that behave. And in reading some of the attachments and the case studies, they were experimenting with more robust fines that would, in a way, fund the enforcement or the staffing, for those, for what will inevitably happen, and the manipulation of the law and loopholes that happen, you know, just human nature, so. I think that, you know, it's going to happen, you know, let's find a way to abate the bad behavior.
If I might, oh, no, go ahead, Mr. Ploy.
The more we talk about this, the more I get a little bit concerned that we're driving policy based upon a very small percentage of problems in this market-driven process. I mean, we're talking tiny amounts of people who are abusing this Airbnb process. And I'm not sure that's how we should make policy. We should be looking at it holistically. We should be looking at the opportunities. Sure, there are problems that need to be regulated, but that doesn't mean that you have a ban on things. Throughout this discussion, I often come back to sit and think, well, I use Airbnb everywhere. I'm scored. I know the scoring of the owners. It's open, it's very public. And here we are banning. We're going to ban this in all districts of the city of Birmingham. Based on what? A couple of bad actors? 2%? 5%? Doubt it. Less than that. That's, if we're talking philosophical, I mean, the lawyers are here, you know. I'd like to hear them opine on this notion that we make decisions based upon a very small number of miscreants.
Well, I think, Brian, I think the question isn't so much, is it, you know, we're making a decision based on this bad actor or that bad actor. Pardon me. I think that the issue, and we've talked about this at some length, it's not just the party problem. It's, you know, the problem of cohesion. It's the problem of congestion. It's the problem of harm to the neighborhood fabric, and I'll use that broadly for people who aren't necessarily just having parties, but are engaging in behaviors that are, you know, contrary to what one would expect in a single-family neighborhood. It's part of the problem. It's a function of the tendency of larger businesses to buy up numerous houses and deploy their capital to extract maximum rents, which you do in the smaller the chunk, the higher the rent per square foot per day, however you want to measure it. So those are all things that are relevant. And it's so I think whether we talk about a 14-day, a 30-day, a 45-day, I guess I wouldn't get too hung up on that, because I think Nick has done a pretty good job of outlawing successive, you know, kind of stays, and he can easily change that language to pick up sublets as well. So, but it goes back to enforcement, because the tendency of people to want to do what they want to do, as opposed to what the ordinance says they can do, means that enforcement becomes critical. I'm assuming, Stuart, that what you're talking about with the secondary market is that I rent it for 30 days and I go find somebody to take it for these 7 and the next, another guy for that 7 and what have you.
No, these are ones that nobody knows about. I mean, they.
No, I
have different
understand.
ways. They may not even have a lease, I don't know. But
Yeah,
I
okay,
know-
but, so that's even, that's a problem that's reflective of some of the stuff we heard, that when the city did a survey, they discovered, oh, there's all these rentals when they looked online. This one's not registered, that one's not registered.
Right.
So in enforcement, it's not just a cliche.
No.
I mean, this is, you know, enforcement is
Important.
going to be, you know, critical.
Something different
So
than we're doing.
I think if we kind of focus on those particular harms to a particular area, and talk about, you know, what in the business districts, you know, what is the issue in the Triangle, and I absolutely agree, having formerly lived in the residential part of the Triangle District, I agree that, you know, short-term rentals will harm that area. You know, talk about, I'm not sure I have a strong feeling on the rail, but that I think is where the conversation ought to go, be anchored however you want to talk about it.
The second part of this is enforcement is one thing, but I think, Robin, if you said, well, I think under circumstances, we should permit this short-term rental, whether it's, or medium-term rental, whatever you want to call it. To me, to deal with the issues of enforcement, I think requires the city to get into the approval process. Who is the tenant? What is the tenant's rating? And if there isn't one, you don't get approval. So, you know, it requires not just enforcement in that circumstance, but some mechanism where the city is involved if there is to be an exception. And thus far, we haven't heard that. We haven't talked about any criteria. So that's, to me, a ways off, except enforcement requires more city resources, and any approval process of which I've just described is even more city resources. And I'm not sure the city is ready for that. But that's, to me, what would be required.
So let me try and bring this back toward the topic, because I think enforcement's an important aspect to this, for sure. But enforcement is an administrative and a code matter.
Right.
Building department matter. It's not this board matter.
Right.
You know, we have no say over enforcement, other than we need to try and put forth ordinances that are enforceable to the best of our ability. Real quickly, Mr. Boyle, I'll add to what Mr. Scheer said, which I thought was very eloquent. I agree with. When we first started looking at this, I would say that I don't have the numbers in front of me, but there was a staggering number of rental units in the single-family neighborhoods alone. I want to say it was 15% of the single-family stock was rented on some basis. Does that sound about right?
I've seen
10 to
25.
10 to 15, something like that? Well, we have numbers from the cities, 12 to 15%, let's just say, which is a large number.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, I've gone on record, I have no issue with long-term rentals. They're just members of the community that choose to do so on a yearly basis. There's no issue there. But even if 10%, 20% of those units are being rented out on a short-term basis, weekends, a week at a time even, I find it hard to believe that doesn't have a negative impact on the surrounding single-family residents who live there. Weekly churn in their neighborhood, weekly groups of not just one or two, maybe 3 to 5, maybe 10 to 12 as a couple families come into town. It's changed the nature of what those neighborhoods have been intended for, and when you purchase, what you expect. So I think back to your philosophical question, that's another reason why I would say that the discussion of rentals is not just a knee-jerk. It is to some degree, but it is not just a knee-jerk to these bad actors or these bad incidents, but it's also a realization and a discussion from the public and the city commission on the actual impacts that these things are having on the nature of property ownership.
I repeat myself. I am absolutely convinced that short-term rentals should be severely controlled within residential neighborhoods. But going on to your own point, I have not heard, I have not read about any problems of short-term rentals in the Rail District. Do we have any evidence that short-term rentals are a problem in, for example, the newer housing behind Griffin Claw? Any evidence? Police reports, newspaper reports, other residents phoning in. I mean, my point is, we're making assumptions. We're not seeing the hard numbers to suggest there's a reason for controlling short-term rentals in the Rail District, nor, I would argue, in the downtown.
But so you're
It's a downtown. I mean, it's our downtown. People come and go in the hotel every day.
Yeah, but they don't come and go next door to you in your condominium.
Sure they do.
Every other day.
They're exactly across the street from 555.
No, not in the same building. That's my point. If I'm on my floor and I'm in my apartment with my family and I've got a rental right next door that every other weekend has got new people moving in and out, are you telling me that's not as much of a nuisance because I chose to live downtown? And furthermore, should we wait for a problem to then say, well, if that's the case, well, let's only ban short-term rentals in the areas where there's been an issue? On 2 streets right now, and then we could come back next year and do this again after we get sued.
I accept that argument. I accept the argument, but I still want to be data-driven. I want to be responding to challenges that we face in, and I'm being very specific here, the Rail District and downtown.
Mr. Schiff.
So I think what Mr. Klein's describing, it's a different problem for condominiums than it is for apartment buildings. Because in a condominium, the ownership sets the rules above and beyond what the zoning rules are. And they can choose, and many of them already have,
Right.
to ban short-term rentals. Now, multifamily housing is a different story. Because if you're renting an apartment, yeah, if I'm renting an apartment for a year, or I've been there 5 years or whatever, and everybody else on the floor is coming and going, and, you don't see them, they're turning over every weekend, different problem. So in my mind, I go back to what I said earlier, I think of multifamily rental housing and single-family in the downtown, I'll call it downtown, I'm not even sure what the boundaries are of the downtown, but I am sympathetic with the notion that if there is a district in which we permit hotels, then we need to look very carefully at that district to say whether and how we ought to be regulating other short-term rentals. And I think it's not enough to simply say, yeah, I don't want to live next door to somebody who's turning it over. I think we got to be more specific about it.
Mr. Jeffries.
I can't help, but as we keep talking about this, and I agree with a lot of what Robin said, this is the whole bistro, having bars. I remember growing up, I think there was 2 places you could get a drink in Birmingham. And they like that fact. But, we've seen our city prosper, and we've had some incidences over that time, but we haven't said, hey, let's go back to, our prohibition kind of mentality. We've said, hey, how do we control this? Bad actors, we take care of the bad actor. We don't throw everything out. And,
So we should allow bistros on the top floor of 555?
I don't know about that. But
Or top floor of Birmingham Place?
Well, we
Well,
regulate.
Merrillwood. Anyone
No,
here
no,
from Merrillwood would like a bistro on the
No, I'm
top floor?
saying we regulate those to take care of the problem versus banning it.
Specifically what we're trying to do
Yeah,
right
so
here.
so yeah, and I agree. There's probably everybody at this table is using Airbnb. There's, it's getting people to come to your town, spend money in your shops and kind of, that kind of stuff is good too. But yeah, do I want to live right next door to one? Yeah, not unless I kind of signed up for it anyway. But, we've got some areas I think that it fits.
Any other input? I mean, we're clearly divided on this issue.
So one other thought, which is, if a variant would be to, in a multi-story building, to limit the number of, in a district where there's already, let's just call it the downtown, maybe the rail, but in a district where there's already hotels, limit the number of short-term rentals on a floor, or maybe even not just on a floor, but limit to maybe only one floor. I mean, there are ways you can attack that.
I think we're picking winners and losers at that point.
Yeah.
I think we need to move on and come back to this as need to. Let's move to the second item for a moment, which was the discussion of exceptions. I believe at one point hosted and perhaps owner occupied. For reference, hosted are rentals in which the owner of the property remains on site for the duration of the stay, renting a room, for instance. And owner-occupied are where the home is the primary residence of the owner. They live there for at least half the year. They document it, it's their tax base, et cetera. But they are not necessarily there, and they could rent it for any other period. Let's throw it open. Discussions on the ideas of exceptions in general and/or these two categories. Mr. Williams.
Well, I guess this is personal view, but I think there's a huge distinction between hosted rentals and owner-occupied rentals. In this town, in this city, in these neighborhoods, people are gone for extended periods of time. And they own they own it, but they're gone. They're not here. They don't know what's going on at their house if they're entering into rental agreements, even intermediate. If they're there, they have a vested interest in protecting the residents and in protecting their reputation among their fellow residents. So I view it as a significant distinction. Do I think we're ready for criteria as to how we would treat that? Not today.
Excuse me.
But I think that the arguments for making an exception for hosted are much stronger than for owner-occupied. And personally, I'm opposed to any exception for owner-occupied because I think people can be gone for 5 months. And it's just too long a time period. Under state law, when you need to be a resident for, a majority of the days in a year.
Right.
And there are people here who are gone all winter. And they just are. They aren't here. So, and everybody in the neighborhood knows who these people are. And I don't think we have a problem right now that I know of, but it doesn't mean there can't be, and we're trying to anticipate. So I think there's a distinction between hosted and, do I think that ultimately we should maybe provide exceptions on hosted? Yes, but I'm not in a position to try to figure out what the criteria ought to be and how it would be enforced or approved. But I do think there's a distinction. It's my personal view.
Sure. I think one point of clarity, there are some who are owner-occupied that don't know what's going on with their property. There are certainly some that do. With the fact that we have not heard issues. Well,
We haven't heard any issues on
it's the fact that there are good owners
Yes.
that do this. The question for me is really just more a matter of how do we decide? And how does
It's just
that,
more difficult.
what does that mean to the entire process? But point taken. Other comments I'd love to, Mr. Curry.
Regarding owner-occupied or hosted, you talked about regulation earlier. I think having the owner involved in there or around, they're living there part of the time, kind of self-regulates. You're not going to want to have your place trashed or develop a bad reputation by renting it out to people who are irresponsible.
Mr. Chair?
So I think most owner-occupieds are going to be, I think if it's truly owner-occupied, I think we can rely on the owner to mitigate most, if not all, of the problems, particularly when there's, I think if I remember right, this draft had a parking limitation, so many per bedroom. And as long as that's directly in front of the house as opposed to anywhere in the neighborhood, I think that's fine. I think it's a good idea. I think a limited owner-occupied is reasonable. I do not think that I would first limit it, as you've described, to truly owner-occupied as opposed to an owner owning multiple houses.
Right.
And I think I would say that in order to eliminate the bigger problems of, we've used the term churn, but, turnover, and the things that go with that, that limit to, a number of days during the course of the year that the owner can rent the property out, whether that's 7, 14, 30, whatever, some limit. And I understand that that creates an enforcement burden, but that's there's always a balance between the rights of the property owner and the enforcement difficulties. It's the simplest thing in the world is to say absolutely no, take your rights away.
Right.
But I don't know that that's necessary or fair. So I would be supportive of an exception for owner-occupieds for a certain number of days per year, and, the city can figure out how that gets enforced, you register in advance, whatever.
How do we determine that number?
But I don't think we do. I think we're kind of, so when we're dealing with zoning, in my take, we're trying to decide what uses fit. And I don't think it's appropriate for us to say, well, this person's going to cheat, or that person's going to cheat, or, the city's going to have to spend some money enforcing it. It's not, we are not going to design a perfect system.
No.
Okay? And even when you combine it with whatever code ordinances the city adopts for additional things, like registration and what have you, and you put those two together, it's not going to be a perfect system. So, what's from, again, our purview in zoning, what's an appropriate use? I would say, and I recognize others may have a different view, that for those people who own their own home, it's their primary residence, they live there for more than 180, whatever number of days it is,
183.
that the burden on the neighborhood to have up to, I'll use 14 days, but pick your number, is outweighed by the benefit to the property owner and the benefit to the neighborhood and the local businesses in terms of new people coming in and being exposed to the city.
So how do we do an ordinance in that light without picking that number?
I think we do pick that number, because I think that
That was my question.
Yeah.
How do we determine what is the appropriate level of nuisance and what isn't?
I think we may.
No,
Yeah.
because an owner-occupied home could rent their home 5 months of the year, every weekend, to a different guest.
Yeah, no.
5 months in a row.
No, that-
Explain to me the difference there between that and somebody who doesn't own the home and is renting it out 12 times a year, Just help me,
Yeah,
help me make that leap.
Sure, I'll do the best I can, but the person who's an owner occupant has an interest in protecting their property, protecting their, I'll call it standing in the neighborhood, preserving the quality of their neighborhood. That is not, it's distinctly different from, I'll call it the non-owner occupant, the person who, in the classic case, the company that owns 6, 8, 10 houses and is just looking to turn money and would say, you know what, hey, I can still make money if I have 5 months a year that I can rent it out. So that to me, that's the difference.
Okay. Other comments, Ms.?
I have a question. Do we have either actual numbers or a sense of what portion of our short-term rentals are hosted rentals, or are we just talking about this in the abstract? Like, is this even really a thing that people are doing?
I don't know.
We don't know.
I don't know. I don't think we have information to tell us how many are short-term and how many are long.
Right.
I think we just have one type of license, which, if anybody's listening in administration, is probably a mistake in the future. Probably need different types of licenses depending on what you're trying to do.
Right.
But I digress.
I haven't seen any
Yeah, I haven't seen any
data
numbers.
that distinguishes,
There is none currently. We did update the application
even though
though,
we know it exists.
recently.
We just don't know to what extent.
How do we know what exists?
Well, I can tell you that on Stanley, the person across the street was a hosted rental. I know what happens. Happened in my neighborhood. Happens in a number of neighborhoods. They rent out rooms or part of the house.
Yeah.
Happens all the time.
I guess I'd just like
But
to...
I don't think we have any data that shows any of that.
I guess I'd just like to remind us all that I understand that as the planning body, duly delegated, we have to make our own findings of fact, and that's important. And we need to continue to have these discussions. But I will tell you that we do have, on more than 3 occasions, the elected officials of our community have dictated a policy direction they want to take, right, wrong, or different. I don't know that I necessarily agree with the entire policy, quite frankly, but it's a policy decision they've made. So I think as we are looking at this and making our findings of fact, how can we not take into account the fact that the elected officials have vigorously indicated their preference on these 2 issues, as well as the matter of 30 days,
Right.
as well as the number of people, residents, who have come forward on multiple occasions, 4 or 5 at least, to voice their concerns. Now, again, we have to make our own findings of fact, and we sometimes live in the abstract. That's why we're up here. But I find it disheartening, after all we've heard, to get to this point of our process, to start backpedaling and,
I don't want to.
discussing such levels of nuance. I tend to agree with Mr. Williams that I don't know that I have enough information, and I think it could take months to figure out whether or not I believe Mr. Scher with regard to owner-occupied. I mean, if I own a home and I don't live in it and I'm renting it, I have care that my home isn't destroyed because I want to keep that cash cow going, right? Do I care as much about what my neighbors think? I guess that depends on the individual. And I have no illusion that most of the owner-occupied rentals that are occurring in this city are probably not problems at all. But I, again, keep coming back to the fact that how are we supposed to make that decision and pick who gets to win and who gets to lose simply because of their zip code? Is that what it comes down to? I just don't get it. And I think we have to try and find a way to push forward. And in my opinion, that the exception, as well as what we talked about, the medium term, is something that I would think strongly we would recommend we would dive into immediately after pushing forward a basic amendment to the zoning ordinance to help the city commission meet its deadline on the moratorium.
Right.
And then come back over the course of the next 4 or 5 months and try and hash through this if they so deem it appropriate. Mr. Scher.
So I'd just like to push back on process with you a little bit. We had people, when the city commission made their delegation, they didn't have, as I recall, very many people coming in and saying, hey, what about an exception? We've been in meetings where, subsequent meetings, where people said, what about this exception, what about that exception? I think our job is to give the city commission our best advice on what works best from a land planning zoning. And if they choose to say, if majority agree with me that there ought to be 2 exceptions, and the city commission says, we don't agree, that's their prerogative, right? But I think it would be a mistake in the process for us simply to say that question's foreclosed because we've been, if we think collectively that it's the best solution, I don't think we should just not do it because the city commission said in April or May or whenever.
I'm not implying that. What I am implying is that to do it, in my opinion, means we're going to be here until January.
Yeah. So I mean, I guess we disagree on that one.
I'm months away from figuring that one out. I need more data. I need more information. I need someone to explain to me why the exception is even valid. Because right now it's very ethereal. It's very much a, well, they're not causing a problem, and they live in the neighborhood, so they're fine kind of thing, which might all be true. I have I have sympathies, but like,
Mr. Chairman, I mean, we are taking an opportunity from a private household who wishes to live in the home and rent out a room. The housing market in Detroit was built on the notion of having duplexes where you bought the building, you lived in the top and you rented out the bottom. That's the nature of the beast. And we are in danger of saying to all our residential folk, no, you can't let out a room.
well, and as
Based on what?
As Mr. Williams said, there's a big difference in that versus the other. I mean, you're also saying that we should not take away the right for somebody that is an owner-occupied to rent their house out for 5.5 months a year, but we should take it away from everybody else in your neighborhood because they own the property free and clear and aren't doing that. Is that right?
No.
But it's also not what we're saying.
It is what you're saying. You're saying take away short-term rentals from everybody who doesn't want to rent their home, but if you live there 6 months of the year, sure, go ahead and rent it out any way you want because we trust you.
No,
That's exactly what we just said.
I've said numerous times that there needs to be a limit on how much that's done.
And I just have no way of understanding how we're going to get to what that limit is. But to your point, Mr. Boyle, I don't have any problem with hosted rentals, personally.
Yeah.
And I don't know that I have a problem with them renting for less than 30 days per se.
Right.
But that being said, how many rooms are being rented? Single rooms are we going to rent out for a weekend here or there? As opposed to 3 months. And I don't know the answer to
I
that.
don't know the answer. Don't know.
So I don't want to get into an argument over something that might not even be a thing.
May not be.
This feels so different than most of the discussions we've had since I've been on this board. The number of unanswered questions, and we're headed towards trying to come out with policy. This sounds like we need a timeout, a moratorium, and we study it and we do it right versus doing it
Yeah.
with a gun to our head and not everybody even close to agreeing, and let's do it right, you know? I don't know.
I come out on the side of, I don't think within the time frame that we have, that we're going to be able to develop criteria that we can agree on, whether it's short-term rentals or owner-occupied, or what the criteria are be and how it's enforced. So my recommendation would be that we spend some time, that we agree as to the short-term ban, but that we make recommendations for further study on selected topics, and that we study those topics in whatever order we think is appropriate. My own view is the first one would be hosted, and the second one would be, but that's just my perception. But I think we move with the ban, get that behind us, but couple it with recommendations for further study for exceptions, period. And we try to come up with how or what criteria we want to use to study.
Mr. Larson, sitting here as one of the newest members of this panel, and I'm pretty uncomfortable trying to gulp down all this information and come up with something that I feel a conviction of a yea or nay vote, you know. So I tend to agree that maybe we're moving too quickly, you know, to render something that's thoughtful and useful and enforceable and all that. It's 2 cents right now.
Any other comments? Well, if I can summarize, what I think I'm hearing from several members of the board is that, I'm going to try and be careful how I say this, that the time frame given to us by the city commission to study and enact the policy decision they've made appears inadequate to several of you. Several others seem to just disagree with the policy, which is certainly right, but I find myself as chair and trying to keep the process moving and the board moving, a very difficult and awkward spot here. We clearly have a mandate from residents and from a commission on a direction for us to study and to try and implement change, and yet we seem stuck on we seem stuck. I'm going to leave it at that. This is arguably the first time the commission, at least since I've been on this board, and I look at many of us who've been on here 10, 15, 20 some odd years. This is really the first time that I've ever remember a commission actually being so crystal clear in their intentions. Quite frankly, normally we're begging them for more information so that we can help suss out the problem. I find it ironic to a degree that we're struggling here with this. I tend to agree with Mr. Williams. I think we all agree that short-term rentals in residential zones are inappropriate. We've all stated such. We've all said that we could probably finish that ordinance tonight. We are deadlocked on exceptions, hopelessly deadlocked right now. I hope not hopelessly, but to me, this is going to take a lot of study. The issue of the two other areas of the city, the rail district and the downtown, I sense disagreement. I don't know that I sense the same level of disparity in opinion as I do perhaps on exceptions. But again, to Mr. Williams' point, I guess I would recommend that we try and take the low-hanging fruit and continue to move forward to then just specifically tell the commission we need to come back and look at a few things. Mr. Boyle.
Chairman, I'm looking at the map. We are in unanimous agreement that 95% of the land and properties in this city should not be impacted by short-term rentals.
Right.
We're in unanimous. Why can't we move that forward and say to the commission, there are, however, disagreement, fairly deep disagreement, in how we regulate the rentals, short-term rentals in the downtown and in the rail district, and we ask for an extended period, but encourage them to go forward and make the policies for residential zones the law.
But you're not going to touch the exceptions?
I'll stop at what I've just said.
So
Well, I take that to mean, and then I'm going to put words in your mouth, that you're suggesting that we move forward with the ordinance language that would ban rentals of under 30 days in all residential zoned properties, period.
Yeah.
But not take action on anything related to properties zoned within the downtown or the rail district.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
And then tell the commission that we simply feel the issue is too complex for those issues as well as the issues of exceptions to get it done in a time frame that they want.
Because we ask basic questions and there are no answers apparently at this stage. Nassim asked, do we have these?
we don't have the data.
We don't have the data. We don't know. We simply don't know.
But may I also add on that point specifically, that I'm not sure that we'll ever know.
Right.
I'm not sure that I'm ever going to have that silver bullet for you if we spend 4 months or 2 years looking into it. I just want to make sure you know that.
But we may see what other communities have done, which we typically do in some way.
Or we could wait for
We've done
10 years to get that.
Stuart,
Yeah.
this is meeting 4 or 5 on this topic. So we have what other communities in Michigan, other communities outside of Michigan are doing. Some that are more touristy, but others that are bedroom communities like us. And Mr. Dupuy is right. We're not going to get that data. The question is, in my mind, do we want those sort of things in our community? Not how many of them are there to make a decision on whether we keep them or not. Now, we may not be prepared to make that, and I agree, we might not. thoughts on what Mr. Boyle has brought forward?
Well, my reaction is, the people who showed up at the joint meeting were all neighborhood
Yep.
residents. And that needs to be addressed immediately,
I
period.
don't disagree with you.
And so, at a minimum, we do that. And that's part of the recommendation, that they take the lid off the interim and make it permanent for now.
In residentially zoned
Yes,
areas.
yes, because that's where the people were complaining,
And I,
for two separate instances.
No, but,
Can I ask a
More than
question?
two, more than two.
Mr. Scher.
Yeah, Robin, when you talk about, do you mean all areas other than downtown and rail? For example, you said residentially zoned, but I think TZ1 is an area that, in my mind, short-term rentals should be prohibited.
I agree.
Yeah, I would agree.
I would agree.
Yeah.
And it would appear that we've got, sorry, I should stop.
Hey, Professor,
Any other opinions on that?
well, I think we need to move on something.
Trying to, that's.
No, I get your point. I get your point. All right, if we put a pin in that, and we'll come back, let's look at the language itself. Maybe that'll help flesh this out, too, because I think it's straightforward to some degree. Now, Mr. Dupuy, you had some revised language you sent out. I'd rather not dwell on the older language if you've gotten comments from legal and others. Perhaps it would be best to start with the definitions, if that's okay.
Page 74 or something.
Yeah, 9.
But I want to make sure we're looking at the ones that have been updated based on the input from
Yeah.
council and others.
Tail end.
Yes, and for those of you with computers, it's the second tab in your PDF document. I put it all on your computers.
Where
for
is
you.
that?
Second tab.
Go down here, and you'll see there's a couple other
So
things.
the second tab is the clean version, the third tab is the red line
Just hover
version.
over that. Here you go.
Is the 80-page
Up
PDF
here.
Yes.
as opposed to
Yeah, the
81?
second tab.
What page are you
Yes.
looking for, Nick?
It's a tab at the top,
You got that?
Is it an 81 page or is it?
80, the 80 page.
80 pages.
Okay.
It's page 80.
Well, the 81 is the clean,
81?
I think.
Okay, skip the first 79.
81's line, but that doesn't make any difference. It's still the
Yeah,
same thing.
there it is. There's the definitions.
Okay, well, then I just didn't.
Oh,
put the
80
red
is
line.
lined. I'm sorry. My mistake.
There we go.
All right. All right, hosted rental. Why don't you just read them?
Yeah, let's just go through these, Mr. Dupuy, and read them, and then we can comment. Perfect.
No problem. So I've got, I don't know, 6 or 7 here. Hosted rental, the rental of a dwelling unit or any portion thereof for compensation where the property owner remains physically present and resides on the premises throughout the duration of the guest's occupancy. This is all alphabetical, by the way. Long-term rental, the rental of a dwelling unit or any portion thereof for compensation with the purpose of providing residential occupancy for a period of 180 consecutive days or more. Medium-term rental, the rental of a dwelling unit or any portion thereof for compensation with the purpose of providing residential occupancy for a period of not less than 30 consecutive days and not more than 179 consecutive days. Owner-occupied rental, the rental of a dwelling unit or any portion thereof for compensation where the dwelling unit constitutes the property owner's primary residence, which is the dwelling unit where a person resides for more than 185 days out of any calendar year, and which is documented by voter registration, a driver's license, or a state-issued identification card showing that address. Rental unit, a dwelling unit or any portion thereof that's offered, leased, licensed, or otherwise made available for residential occupancy by one or more persons in exchange for compensation, regardless of the duration of occupancy. A rental unit may be used as a medium-term rental, long-term rental, hosted rental, or owner-occupied rental as regulated by this ordinance. Residential amenities, accessory features, facilities, structures, areas, and services that are intended primarily for the use, enjoyment, convenience, or benefit of the owner and are subordinate to the residential use. Residential amenities may include but are not limited to fitness facilities, swimming pools, playgrounds, sport courts, gardens, kitchens, off-street parking, and similar features. And finally, short-term rental, the rental of a dwelling unit or any portion thereof for compensation with the purpose of providing transient lodging for a period of less than 30 consecutive days. So that's what, 1, 2, 3, 4,
Okay,
7. 7 new definitions.
All right. It's a lot to digest, but I will say that I think those are pretty well done, Mr. Dupuy.
And they're all very intentional. I hope you notice there's intentional things in there. For
Yes.
example, in short term, I think this was one part of your comments, Chair Klein, to make sure the word transient is in there, because that's the focus.
The definition of short-term corresponds to what the city commission has directed.
Yes.
And in my
Yes.
view.
Yes.
And if you notice, another comment that I
stated my view
got,
on 30 days.
another comment that I got was in the definition of rental unit. In the packet, you would have seen short-term rental here.
Right.
But to meet that request, it was removed in this document, so that
Right.
it doesn't, it's not, we don't give anybody unintentionally the impression that they can.
Right.
So if, for instance, at some point, whether now or in the future, we allow exceptions for hosted or owner-occupied that are less than 30 days, I think we just have to put a note on this to make sure that we update that definition to
Yeah.
include short-term
Yeah.
in the
Yes.
future then.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because they would, at that point, be allowed,
Yeah.
correct? Am I reading that right?
Yeah, I think what we're trying to do here is build a series of threads that when we pull on it in the future, or if we pull on it in the future, we don't unravel a bunch of other stuff. So yeah, I think it's in the future, potentially an easy fix.
Yep.
Comments, questions, input? We pretty
So.
happy with these right here?
Your thought is we make a resolution on short-term. We also make a recommendation as part of the resolution on these definitions going forward to the city commission.
That if we're going to
That
have
we adopt them.
if we're going to have some form of resolution moving forward, it would include bare minimum the 30-day ban in residentially zoned properties,
And the
and
definition.
all of the definitions and anything else related to it that would be needed for enforcement, correct?
Right.
And that if we decided we were unable to come to a decision on not the triangle, we were unable to come to a decision on those properties in the rail district or those commercial properties downtown, or on exceptions, that those might be included in our resolution, or at least a comment to the commission that we felt we did not have time to adequately vet them, and we need
More time.
to look at it after you move forward on the initial thrust.
They can do what they want.
This is, Nick, again, sorry, Mr. Chairman, this goes to the public, a public.
Public hearing.
A public hearing.
Well, that would be the next step if we're ready, would be to set a public hearing in which we would, again,
Take this to the public.
correct.
Okay.
Yes.
In August. If we're going to hit the deadline.
Well, if we're going to move anything forward tonight, it would be for an August meeting, yes.
Yeah, I think we have to.
And then just understanding, let's just make sure we understand timing here too with regard to this second part, because I know it's going to be important to some folks. The way I understand the licensing moratorium is that it was on new licenses, that all existing licenses are able to continue operation if they're, in good standing.
But those expire in April.
Those expire in April. So anything we would do, we would need would need to be done sooner than that, and I would say quite a bit sooner than that, because there's the whole idea of people renting things out. You can't wait till the last
City Commission has to have a public
meeting.
hearing.
Like as soon as January.
Yeah, we would need to hop on it in
January
the fourth
1.
quarter and really dive in to see if there's anything further to be done. I
Yeah.
just want to make sure that we're all ready to do that, and I think we are,
Yeah.
if that's how we go.
What else you got?
All right, so those are the definitions. Then, Nick, you had, what other sections would be appropriate? I mean, obviously, you updated all of the individual zoning sections, to allow rental units and whatnot, to change that math. I don't think we need to go through each of
We
those.
do.
pages. Do you?
We do.
Okay. Mr. Scher.
The reason, and it also impacts the definition, if I'm understanding this proposal correctly, we are going to, or maybe I should ask, are we in this saying that the residential uses, that the rental of property effectively for more than 30 days is permitted, but less than 30 days is not permitted? Is that what we're saying? Is that the proposal?
Yes?
I believe so. Mr. Dupuy, why don't you go to
Yes.
section 5, like one of the examples?
That's what we are seeing, yes.
Yeah, I mean, I think
So
that was
then-
kind of the point of this.
Then the definition of rental unit, hang on, let me get back there.
Oh, sure.
All the way to the end.
Yeah, trying to get,
Scroll down. Get the thing to the end.
so rental unit, a rental unit may be used as a medium-term, long-term, hosted or owner-occupied. So hosted or owner-occupied, under this proposal, would come out of that definition.
If we're moving forward with this compromise,
Yeah.
the
So that would have to change.
Boyle plan, that would have to get updated, yes.
Okay.
Good catch.
Is that the only place?
Well, it
So
shows
far-
up everywhere, but since it's the same definition, it
Fix
fits.
all the sections.
Well, the definition's in every section.
Yeah.
It's only in one spot, but.
Right.
Okay.
Well, can I ask you, I mean, it's no problem to strike them necessarily, but to me, it's kind of harmless, because in the definitions of hosted and occupied, we don't say anything about,
It's not- No,
Well, yeah, that's true, because
No.
owner occupied and hosted could be done more than 30 days.
Yes.
Absolutely could. That's the,
it's just a type of rental. It may be, I guess
Yeah,
it feels harmless either way.
You've mixed
to me.
metaphors here. You've mixed time periods with types.
right, but where,
should we just strike the last sentence, Mr. Chair? Because we're really just defining a rental unit.
yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
We could do
We're
that.
not trying to, we're
Yeah.
not trying to touch owner occupied rentals for more
Yeah,
than 30 days.
take the sentence out.
Less ambiguous.
Take the
I think that's a good
sentence
point, Mr. Chair. Do you agree, Mr. Dupuy?
I think
Take the
that, I think that would be fine. I don't think that does any sort of damage
Okay.
to the rest. I think it's,
out. Yeah, take it out.
okay, all right.
So then why don't we go to, for instance, Article 5, 5.02 is one of them, or whatever, it doesn't even matter, but any of the use-specific standards for any of the zones, because they're all going to be the same. We talk about rental units. What page are you on, just so everyone's following this?
I chose page 62. I think this is
60 what?
62. It's all the specific standard sections are the same, so whatever you land on is the same as I'm looking
It's
at.
actually 61 in our little packet.
Okay.
All right, so Mr. Dupuy, this is short enough. Why don't you just read through it? Do you mind?
These are use-specific standards, so in the use tables, in Article 2, you'll see an asterisk next to rental unit, which directs you to the use-specific standards in Article 5. This would be a completely new section, not a revision. We would strike those where relevant for renting of rooms and replace it with this. Rental unit, a rental unit is subject to the following provisions. 1, all operators of rental units must be licensed and are subject to the requirements of the Birmingham Code of Ordinances. 2, no rental unit shall be advertised, listed, or rented for a period of less than 30 consecutive days.
Yep.
3, successive short stays prohibited. This is one of the loopholes that we're talking
Yep.
about.
Yep.
No dwelling unit shall be used, offered, or operated in a manner that circumvents the regulations of this ordinance through successive or consecutive short stays. It shall be unlawful for any person to rent, lease, license, or otherwise permit occupancy of a dwelling unit to multiple unrelated occupants for periods of less than the minimum thresholds as defined in Article 9 of this ordinance. The use of multiple back-to-back agreements or reservations to circumvent the minimum stay requirement is expressly prohibited. 4, advertising and platform listings. Compliance required. No person shall advertise, market, promote, or offer a dwelling unit for rent in a manner that is inconsistent with the requirements of this ordinance. False or misleading advertising. It shall be unlawful to advertise or represent a dwelling unit as being available for rental for a rental duration or use that is prohibited by this ordinance. C, permit identification. Every advertisement or listing for a rental unit shall display the valid license number assigned by the city in a clearly visible location within the listing. And D, residential amenities. Residential amenities may not be advertised, listed, or rented separately from the rental unit.
Residential area, period.
And that's it. That's it.
All right. Board, any
No.
reaction, comment? I mean, it seems fairly straightforward, doesn't it?
Yep.
Somewhat simple, actually.
Pretty straightforward.
Yeah, I have no problems with
Mr.
it.
Scher, you're pondering, and I always love your ponders.
Oh, yeah. I'm wondering about the residential amenities may not be advertised, et cetera, separately from the rental unit. And I guess my concern, I'm trying to think through, is normally I would say that the amenity is pertinent to the permitted rental as opposed to rented separately. You don't want somebody renting the house to, just to get at the pool or whatever. But I guess I think I need to take a little bit more time to think through, because it may be that since the rental unit can't be for less than 30 days, it may not make a difference.
I don't think it does.
So,
Okay. And I think the intention, Mr. Dupuy, correct me if I'm wrong, is to further strengthen the notion that you cannot rent out your yard, patio, pool to anyone unless you're renting out the entire rental unit. And if you're doing so, you have to do it for more than 30 days.
Right.
yeah, and this may get there, I'm just,
We've got 30 days to figure it out.
Yep.
Any other comments or questions at a board level? Mr. Boyle?
Just a very quick one. Nick, as we go forward with this, 4C says permit identification. Every advertisement or listing for a rental unit shall display the valid license number assigned by the city in a clearly visible location within the listing. I've never seen such a thing on Airbnb. Could you just run that by the Airbnb folk? Ask if it happens? Where's the best place to put it? Does it have any standing in what they do? It seems to me we're asking Airbnb and VRBO and whoever other platforms there are, Rent My Pool. No, I didn't mean that. I think maybe you should think about it a wee bit.
Yeah, and I think, I'm not a host of an Airbnb, as a full disclosure, but I'm pretty sure when you put your property on, you write a description for that property, and as the property owner, it would be your responsibility
Not Airbnb,
in that
yours.
listing that you develop to include that permit number. So if you're a licensed renter in the city of Birmingham, you'll have that number, and what we would expect from you is that you need to include that number in your listing as you write it. The Airbnb doesn't write listings, from what I understand. You'll write a cozy bungalow in Birmingham, 2 rooms with a swimming pool. Permit number XYZ.
I'm watching too much
Mr.
HGTV.
Lawyer, it says every advertisement.
Yeah.
The advertisement is Airbnb's advertisement. I know it's written by Mrs. Smith, Mr. Jones, but it's an Airbnb listing.
I want to be honest,
I'm looking at the two
I don't see an issue.
3 lawyers, sorry, apologies. 3 lawyers can opine.
We're saying you got to list it in your description,
Okay, back off.
period.
From
Fine.
what I read, in these case studies, it's just legitimizing it so that you
Yeah.
can't slip through as illegal or unregistered. It's just
Okay.
like having a license plate on your car.
Good.
What else you want to do?
At this point, I think I'd like to take it to the public, to get some public input while we kind of ponder all we've said, and then we can come back and make a decision on what
Motion.
we might do. So with that, I am going to open it up to the public. If you are here and been waiting patiently, I appreciate that. Hopefully, you've enjoyed this incredibly exciting dive into zoning ordinances. If you are here and would like to make a comment, practicality, come up to either microphone. I will call on you. If you are at home watching on Zoom and you'd like to make a comment, please use the raise your hand function. And I have a listing, and I will call on you as appropriate. But, sir, you're here. Welcome. Please introduce yourself and where you live and provide your input.
1457 East Lincoln. One of the 2% that received the bad 2%, and it's really bad.
Can't hear.
Okay?
Yeah, 'cause you just make sure.
The 2% is really bad. And someone could have died easily. 4 houses had bullets in them. My car had 8 bullets in them. Really bad. So we should be reacting. And actually, we should have been looking at it before it happened. Okay? That's why I like the way you're writing it, because midterms might be an issue, hosted, whatever, how you deal with those in the future. I'm worried. I think less about hosted, but owner-occupied, I'm worried. Because I know the person that owns the house where that shooting happened, and they will make it their primary residence, not live there, and rent it out. And you say 165 days, but prove it. Right? His license will have that address, the documents will have the address, and he'll be doing it. And as far as these other districts, you push them out of the residential area, they're going to move in to those districts. And they will buy up those properties, and they will do the same thing to those districts that they've done in our residents, in our neighborhood. And you should drive and just look at the properties. Even where there's not a problem, there are weeds, there's trash, there's all kinds of stuff going on at these properties. They're not taking care of the homes, okay? They're doing the bare minimum. So remember that, okay? Watch out for people that want to make money off their residents. That's not what it's for. You buy a home, it's not to make money, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else present care to provide any comment? Anyone else online? I don't see any hands going up.
This is an objection.
Sir, welcome.
Hi, Eric Kohler, 1376 East Lincoln. Yeah, maybe a little disappointed in the beginning. Seemed like we were backtracking. It seemed like all the last meetings I've been in, it was pretty clear what the intention of the rule was, and to hear those comments like bad actors is just kind of offensive. Yeah, it's about a fabric of community. I think one of you mentioned that. I think even the individuals that have been up here talking about hosted rentals talk about the star athletes. Yeah, I mean, I think if you ask their neighbors if they'd rather have a family community or a famous golfer in that residence, I think they would probably lean toward a more permanent resident that their kids could play with, and we could grow our community. So I think you should think about those things. And yeah, my neighbors made some valid comments as well. You can tell it's an emotional thing for us. We've been to all these meetings, and we're trying to get you to understand what it's like to live next to one. You mentioned you wouldn't want to live next to one. I've been there for over 25 years. I didn't. Airbnbs weren't a thing, right? That came to me across the street. So now it's down the street, it's across the street, the street's over. So again, please consider these situations as you look to make your rules, and think about what you're trying to benefit the city. Like, if you want to make an exception, why? What are you trying to provide as a benefit? Is it about making money, or is it to build the community that you have kind of at least rooted yourselves down into and are committing your professional careers to some level? So that's my comments. Thanks.
Thank you. Ma'am, you, and then we'll go to someone online. So
Okay.
please.
Kelly Kozlowski, no relation to Commissioner Kozlowski. I also live on East Lincoln. A quick clarifying point. I don't remember who mentioned it, but there was a comment about, and there have been several comments in several meetings about this is rushed, there's not enough time, we need more data. In coming to these meetings and talking to other neighbors, like there are records of complaints. Unfortunately, it doesn't sound like police and code and city officials have worked together to connect the dots with that information, but I can point you toward calls that we have made on the Airbnb across the street from our house multiple times over the past couple of years. I've heard horror stories of mothers with young children waking up to drug needles in their driveway from the Airbnb across the street from their house. Like, this is not a fraction. This is not a couple of bad actors or minor instances here and there. This is significant. It has been going on for years. It's just that it's surfaced, maybe what feels like more recently and urgently, because there was gunfire to the tune of 35 shell casings at one residence. So I appreciate that it might feel rushed for you all, and you might be very busy. I'm also very busy. I work a full-time job and working on a PhD. I spend hours every month coming to these meetings now. So I get it, but please don't let that be the thing that gets in the way of you making progress on this or making it an urgent priority, because for the people who live it every single day across the street from these homes, you're very fortunate, it sounds like. You don't have to live next door to it. Maybe that is blurring the perspective. I also am hearing from board members that it seems like it's very popular for everyone to note the fact that they stay at Airbnbs and they use Airbnbs as though that's a relevant data point. I think of that as a bias that is potentially flavoring how you're making these decisions, and so maybe that's not the data point that we're after. We're not after your anecdotal experience of having a great time and being an ideal tenant. With the districting, I would just offer, Birmingham's not a huge city. The districts are not that large and far apart from each other. It's easy to traverse from one to the other. I can run to the rail district in a minute from my house. So when you're looking at, maybe it should be allowed here, but not allowed here, just recognize that those lines are sort of non-existent from the lived experience standpoint. And in the last point I'll offer is when you're looking at condos, apartments downtown. I don't know if you saw the story in Cranes this morning about Traverse City rethinking their short-term rental ordinance and regulations, partly because they have a housing shortage, partly because people are buying up condos and turning around just to use them as rentals 365. So, maybe it doesn't feel like we have a housing shortage in Birmingham, but I bet there are a lot of people who would love to make this their permanent community. And it would be so unfortunate if we continue to build housing like the development that's going up at the corner of Woodward and Maple, and those units weren't occupied by full-time Birmingham residents. I would love more neighbors. I'm not interested in more hotel guests living in homes. And to that point, as long as you're looking at data, I'd be very curious about our hotel occupancy. Are we so overloaded that people can't find a place to stay in this city? Or is it that we are so focused on making sure that they can have the type of residence of their choosing? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. To online, we have one person with their hand up. It is someone, B-Ham iPhone. It's the only one. Oh, the hand went down. Does BM iPhone have a comment? Please raise your hand again if you do.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi, my hand is up. Can you unmute me from your end because it won't let me from my end?
Yes, you are now unmuted. If you could please introduce yourself. Thank you.
My name is Eve Pittman. I've been at a number of meetings since the beginning. I'm just here to clarify a couple questions you all had about why there is a 30-day minimum request. It's actually a two-parter. The 30 days refers to the difference between being a guest at a short-term rental as defined by law, and the city attorney should be able to help you with that. The second half of that has to do with registered sex offenders. A number of short-term rentals are in areas by parks and schools. And by parks, I also include Shane Park downtown, by the hotels. If you are a registered sex offender, you have 3 business days to report to law enforcement in the community so the community can notify residents. If you check into an Airbnb Thursday night and you check out Sunday night, you are not required to register. If you check into an Airbnb Thursday night and you were there 29 days, you are not required to register. If you check into an Airbnb and you were there 30 days, you're required to register with law enforcement, and law enforcement is required to notify the community. I hope that clears up any confusion as to why the 30-day minimum.
Thank you very much. All right, with that, I don't see any other hands going up. I see no one here else wishing to speak, so I'm going to bring it back to the board. Excuse me. It's been a rather robust conversation, I think a good one. Maybe go around one last time to see if there are any other comments. I know that we have agreed to kind of shelve the exceptions for tonight. I know that we have generally agreed on the language of the ordinance for the most part. I know Mr. Shearer's still got a quizzical look on his face. We'll come back to that. But for the most part, the definitions and the language of the ordinance. And I think the only real item that we may want to come back to or may not would be, you know, what to do with downtown and the rail, and whether that's something we tackle now or whether we also put that on the side. And I only say that because I think I know very clearly what the policy decision wants to do. And I'm going to throw that back to the board for some further discussion before we decide on our next steps. So, Mr. Shearer.
I have a question before we get to that. Nick, the parking standards that apply to each one of these units, are they different for a rental unit than they are for just if it's a single-family house, for example?
Excuse me. So technically, yes. And just as a brief explanation, if you didn't catch it, I simply just carried over the standard that was in the code, literally copied and pasted it into here.
So the current city code requires this?
Yes, so I removed it from the city code and put verbatim what it asked for, 2 parking spaces for the first bedroom and 1 parking space for each additional bedroom. And this is off-street parking.
Does the city permit, the city code permit the off-street parking to be required by on-street parking?
Yes, the city code, there's a sub-point in there that does permit on-street parking spaces to be counted towards this requirement.
Okay, but this does not?
This does not. I thought it was a little inappropriate.
Okay, all right, thank you.
All right, so board, now to kind of our decision for the night, where we're headed with this. Any further reflection based on input from the public or any mullings on the commercial districts of downtown and the mixed-use districts of the rail? And Mr. Dupuy, before I apologize, the zoning of all of the mixed-use parcels within the Triangle District those are MUs, whereas the rail district are all MXs, correct? So we're clear that the Triangle District, all of those parcels and the mixed-use parcels are all in, if I'm hearing everybody.
Yeah, if I'm understanding you correctly, yes. They're both mixed use, but
No
they're
issues
different
there.
categories.
So let's just start it off, Mr. Boyle.
And I just make a recommendation that we consistently use the, I'm blocking in the word, the parking, the designated downtown parking area.
The parking assessment district?
Parking assessment, thank you. The parking assessment district as artificial but useful definition of downtown.
There is a defined downtown.
There is?
And it's bigger than
Oh, cool.
the former parking set. You can see it here.
I didn't know that.
It goes all the way east past, I think, pretty close, if not inclusive of a certain planning board member's former firm, Giffords Webster.
Yeah.
It almost makes it to Adam. This is technically downtown here in the downtown overlay, the Kroger, what's now Swift Home Loans.
How far west does it go?
Yeah.
That would be like the Surnow building at 320 Martin,
Oh, okay.
Okay, that's fine. North? North?
all the way up to the dry cleaners.
So Oak.
But it doesn't cross the street to the mobile.
And south?
Straight down to what's down there at the end, that salon at Lincoln.
Okay, Lincoln, fine.
Well, let me pose the question. Mr. Boyle, you said the boundary of the former parking assessment district, which is the boundary within which all of our hotels are located. It's the boundary within.
Well, except one.
Well, except one. pardon me.
Except one, there's always an exception.
The boundary within which parking requirements are vastly different. It's a generally accepted different area. Might I opine to you that perhaps we shouldn't use the definition of downtown as shown on that map, but should use the smaller former boundaries of the parking assessment district so that folks on North Old Woodward, South Old Woodward near Lincoln, and the fringes toward the neighborhoods are spared a bit further from this conversation?
Yeah, that's why I suggested the park. I'd forgotten the term, but the parking is.
So you're on board with that if that's the direction we go?
Absolutely on board with it.
Well, I might even push further. What you're really talking about is the D4, all the blue. I think that would be the cleanest, because the assessment district boundary, technically, to your point, doesn't really exist anymore.
Fair.
It's a thing, yeah, zoning, we use it.
D4.
But what you really mean, with a couple of exceptions, are the D4, the blues. Those are the ones that are farthest away from residential zones. Still kind of close to a member of the public's point, but perhaps that's what you mean, just for a little food for thought.
Why don't we think about that while we go around the table, if that's okay, Mr. Bullock? Sure. Consider it. Other comments or input?
I'm fine.
I'm good right now. Scott?
Any changes in approach we want to?
No, I think this is a reasonable approach.
So, to summarize, what we're suggesting is that the language as amended tonight would go forward to a public hearing that would eliminate rentals of 30 days or less in all areas of the city, with the exception of the D4 properties and the MU properties in the rail.
MX properties in the rail.
MX,
Yep.
sorry.
Yep.
The MX properties of the rail, because at this point, we would say to the commission that those are complex areas that we need more time to study. And that furthermore, we would not have any exceptions to this for any hosted or owner-occupied unit. But again, say to the commission that we believe that's, again, a more nuanced, difficult question that will require more time. And therefore, we present this as we just stated.
Presented as a prohibition.
Is the board, is that what I'm,
To move this forward,
To move this forward.
I think that's absolutely the case. And I'd even highlight it by saying, in response to the request from the public, heard on multiple occasions, we are recommending this in all residential zoned areas in the city. Make it clear to all, that's what we're doing.
Mr. Dupuy, how do you feel about that?
It feels pretty clear. I'll have to obviously adjust my findings, so maybe when you make your motion tonight, because I wrote it kind of specifically.
Well, the motion is simply to set a public hearing if it wants.
Yeah,
It doesn't really
yeah.
get into findings of fact at that point, Mr. Chair.
That's just what I included in my motion language, to consider
Right.
the findings as written in the July 8th report. So maybe don't do that, because they're not all relevant now. So that's all I would ask, is that you don't read that verbatim, because
Why
it
don't we
would.
have Mr. Scher make the motion?
Do you want to take a bathroom break while I work it out?
But generally, yes. I think
With assistance from Mr. Boyle.
aside from the downtown B4 and the MX thing, tonight's gone as I generally expected. That we're moving forward with our stopgap measure and asking for more when we send this to them. Generally. That's what it feels like to me.
Yeah, it's fine. But the stopgap goes forward.
And that's the cleanest, by the way. I think that's the cleanest solution here. So I think
I
that's.
tend to agree. I think the biggest issue here is just making sure we get our motion correct.
So I think, pardon me, if it's the sense of the board, I think we don't even need to get into talking about exceptions at this point.
Correct.
All we need to do is to set a public hearing.
Correct.
Correct.
So, and then after the public hearing, that's when we would make findings and recommendations. The recommendations could include whatever it is we have to
Exactly.
say.
Correct. So if anything, we just want to make sure that we reference the proper sections. If we're not doing D4, for instance, what does that mean to the motion?
Yeah.
If we're not doing MU, what does that mean to the motion? Or Mr. Scher, do you have a workaround through your magic of
Well, I think, let me, excuse me, I think, I move that we set a public hearing for August 12th, 2026, to consider amendments to the zoning ordinance that would prohibit short-term rentals as defined in the submission in all areas of the city other than the D4 zone and the MX zone. Including the suggested, amendments to sections 4 and 5
9.
and 9.
9.
That's on, there, I think that's it.
We have a motion by Mr. Sherry. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Boyle. Mr. Dupuy, you feel comfortable with the motion?
Yes, but if I may take an unorthodox move and make a comment on the motion?
It's time for
If that's
comments on the
appropriate.
motion. So yes, we have a second. Time for comments on the motion.
I think the logic for the D4 is much sounder than the logic for the MX. Understanding the arguments that you're making about it being different, I think it's just as close, if you can see the purple and the yellow separated by a street, to single family as this group of yellow is to the mixed use in the triangle. I think it is not the same as downtown, albeit different. I think the logic's a little flawed. But I understand it, at least. I understand where you're coming from.
Okay. Any other conversations?
Forgive me for not making that comment earlier, but
Any other conversations on the motion? For the record, I agree with Mr. Dupuy, but I'm not about to derail this, no pun intended, at the moment. Anyone else having any second thoughts?
I look forward to the public comments.
Mr. Seen? No?
Well,
Mr. Williams?
my comment is, I'm probably going to vote no on the motion because I don't think there should be an exception, as I said before, for commercial. I think it's all. I think it should be all. That's my view.
Okay.
It doesn't mean I'm opposed to the residential. I just think that
Understood.
the short-term solution should include both residential and commercial.
Mr. Jeffries?
Are all those, and maybe Brian knows, are all those units in that rail district, there's no apartments, those are all condos?
They're all condos, but there are a lot of rentals,
But there's,
and there's work-live.
but there's condo associations, like
There is
like
one.
Dan was
And
saying.
there are work-live arrangements in many of them. So there is a flavor of commercial in that area.
But there's another level of governance is what I was trying to get at. There's a condo board that could.
If there was one, I wasn't familiar with it, but I was a renter in a long-term rental.
That's also,
There has to be a condo board.
right.
Yeah.
But
Whether it does anything or not is a different story.
right, that's also the same kind of board that allowed all those porches to go in completely wrapped
Yeah.
before we told them it was illegal. So that's not.
I didn't like walking up.
Any other comments on the motion? Let's probably bring this back together.
All right.
No?
No.
All right, to the public on the motion, is there anybody that would care to comment specifically on the motion to set a public hearing on August 12th? I see no one standing up, I see no one online coming up, so we'll bring it back to the board, and we need to roll call this one, please.
Daniel Sher,
Yes.
Robert Boyle,
Yes.
Scott Klein,
I'm going to limb and say no right now.
Stuart Jeffries,
Yes.
David Larson,
Yes.
Brian Williams,
No.
Misty Mermet.
Yes.
All right, by my math, it's 5-2, so the motion carries. So we will have a public hearing on August 12th at this body to discuss the motion that we worked on here today. For those trying to keep pace with the process, which I know can be blurring, at that meeting, this board will make a decision as to whether or not to recommend the ordinance language to the city commission. We are a recommending body. Even if this board votes unanimously on that date, it would then go to the city commission to hold a public hearing for a final decision. So with that, I want to thank everybody for their participation. I'd like to thank the board for one of the deepest, probably rawest discussions we've had in a long time. Mr. Dupuy as well, good work. And with that, we're going to move on to our next item, which is the zoning ordinance update. Is there anything for us here today, Mr. Dupuy, or just a placeholder for?
It was kind of a placeholder and obviously nothing in the packet. But you did ask me for something at the last meeting.
Yes.
I'm not going to be able to quote it, but
Yeah.
it's based on public engagement.
Yes.
And I can tell you that there's, of course, clearly the bucket that we have and feel confident about that's being done by Halcyon Levine. We always knew that it wasn't a one-time shot, so they did the open house and they did the survey. That wasn't the only time. There's going to be consistent engagement throughout. But you might argue that it's fairly typical kind of engagement things. So what we've been mulling over in the planning department is how to offer more opportunities outside of the traditional channels, coming to meetings or sending me an email. And there's one specific thing that we are nearly ready to go live with. And what we're setting up, what we're calling right now, is zoning ordinance office hours, where you can sign up on a calendar to come in and talk to us about whatever you have related to zoning, either high or low level. We'll have daytime options, we'll have nighttime options. We may even sometimes have a weekend or two to make sure that they're accessible at the right times for people. I think that's a little bit above and beyond,
Can
but
I make a suggestion that you couple that with a communication, I assume written, to the residents, all residents, and maybe think about whether you want a short survey to go with that. That comes back to you and that you can bring your concerns to the meeting, but that you get some data coming back.
it's good that you mentioned that, because we would obviously communicate that part. I think there's better communication to be had through our networks generally. We've written newsletter articles about it, but there's much more opportunities on social, which actually Halcyon has helped us with. Related to the survey, though, just a thought we've had is to kind of stop and take the temperature of the community from time to time about the project, how it's going, have you heard about it, what more do you need type questions, rather than do you think 30 feet is appropriate in R2 type questions.
I'm not suggesting it can be detailed. It's sort of a teaser questionnaire that gets people interested to show up.
Yeah, and to make sure that they're getting enough, and if they're not, how else do they have any ideas?
I don't want them to
So-
be surprised when this thing gets adopted.
Yeah,
That's all.
yeah, that's good. So those are the things we're mulling over, something outside of the scope of the Halcyon Levine project, something in-house, but very much worthwhile. Halcyon Levine's willing to support, of course they are, but they do have a pretty defined scope, so.
Okay, good.
That's all I wanted to make sure you knew about today. When it goes live, we'll let you know. It'll be in things. Hopefully you'll see it. And then still open to, we've got a year left in this thing, so I'm still open to other options should you see anything interesting else. Sorry, yeah, it's true though. Should you see anything elsewhere, or if you've been a part of anything anywhere else that you might think we might be able to replicate?
Can you, off the top of your head, remind us of when this board's involvement in a more detailed manner is anticipated?
September,
I would say August at this point.
August.
They, in their
Well, we're in the middle.
charting and timelines, anticipated to be done with the
Zoning ordinance.
preliminary recommendations report around this time, July and August.
Okay.
And that's going to be the first meatiest chunk of things that we're going to review.
Okay.
I might just say fall then, maybe not August,
Yeah.
but early fall.
Okay, great. Moving on to project updates. I don't know if anyone has any questions or comments on that.
Plattner dropped out.
Okay.
And then moving along, I hear none. No administrative approval or the like. Draft agenda for next time is a whopper,
Yeah,
but we knew that was coming.
Yes.
time
Yep.
for a dental appointment.
All right.
Robin, you have a question, sir?
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr.
No,
Brown.
I just, a quick one. I had to look it up. 930 East Maple. Have they been given sort of the green light by the city for a bistro?
Yep. In April.
From my memory, there's like 10 seats.
It's very small.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. It's probably about 20, yeah.
Okay, it was a question. I wasn't sure.
Yep.
And 400 outdoor dining space. No, I'm kidding. 4. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have even said that.
On a platform.
That's in the middle of Maple.
And Maple, yeah.
And Maple.
That is a busy agenda.
Plastic. All right. With that, any other items before the board?
Not for me.
No need.
All right. Seeing none. Good work, board. Meeting adjourned.